Well, hello and welcome. We are going to be talking about dissolve that debt, cash and debt management in our session today. These sessions are all recorded and they will share the links with everyone. So you can go back and relook at the sessions if you please. For those of you who are participating right now live with us, welcome. Thank you for showing up. And if you want to ask questions, go ahead and put your questions. There's a Q&A box. Go ahead and put your questions in there, and I'll look at questions throughout our presentation. The presentation will last about 45 minutes. Um, and then for those of you who are going to continue with us today on EY Day, we'll have about a 15-minute break, and then at the top of the hour, we'll start our next topic. So welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Catherine Chris Martin. I'm with EY. I've been with them a little over 10 years, and I love sharing this information. This is really a topic I do happen to be very passionate about because it's something that I personally struggled with, and that was getting out of debt. And so I do feel very strongly about it. I love to share information which can help you if you find yourself in that same situation. So let's get started. Before we get into the topic itself, we are going to focus in on just reminding you about all the resources that you do have at Wespath. So let's get started with that first. We have the Benefits and Investments website. That's wespath.org. There's Benefits Access. It's benefitsaccess.org. And easy to remember addresses, right? And the phone number if you want to call the Benefits and Investments call center. So all of these are great resources to assist you in understanding your benefits, and especially if you're getting closer to retirement, when you want to actually begin your benefits, you've got some good information here at these resources. You also have a lot of assistance through the EY Navigate program. So this particular workshop, it's a part of the program, but it's a tiny part. In addition, you also have access to our website. You have access to our planner line. You have access to actually attend other group sessions that we hold through our website. And so I just encourage you to use these resources. These are all a part of your employment and through the Wespath organization. So I really encourage you to use these because they are all free for you to use. You can call our planner line as often as you want to or as you need to. We can help you with any financial area. It's completely unbiased and confidential guidance. Most importantly, when you call our planner line, our planners are trained on the benefits that you have through Wespath. They know how your benefits work. They understand things like the housing allowance and so on, and they can assist you with any specific questions and really help you in your planning. So on one hand, you might want to do it yourself, and you can go to the website. You can access calculators, worksheets, and tools to help you with your planning as far as retirement planning and whatnot. But you can also talk to our planners and they can do these reports on your behalf. For those of you, if you are dealing with getting out of debt, our team does that on a regular basis. Our financial planners deal with that all the time, is assisting people in coming up with a plan to help you get out of debt. So if that's something you want to focus on, maybe you're here because you have debt and you're trying to get rid of it. Maybe you're here because you just want to make sure you don't get into it. Whatever your personal circumstances are, we have tools that can assist you. And that's what's most important. And they're at no charge. My favorite price, free. You can also download the app. It's the EY Navigate digital app. We have that, and you can then access some of that same information. You can reach our planner line by calling the number. You can reach our planner line by clicking on a tab in the web address in the website, and you can reach our planner line by clicking into the app. So you can reach our planner line a variety of ways, and they're open long hours. I highlight that as well. They're open long hours. They're open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. So we try to make it easy. So regardless of your work schedule, you're going to have the ability to contact one of our planners and get started with your assistance and your planning process. So it's a great way to do it. And downloading our app can help as well. We actually even have software where you can link your bank account, your credit cards and so on to our website, and it will categorize your spending for you. It'll help you figure out where is that money going. I sometimes stop and think about that. I'm a big tracker of my finances. It's something that helped me get out of debt. I continue to do it to this day because I always want to keep that as a focus of staying out of debt. And it can really help you if you figure out where your money is going. So we'll get started talking about that in just a moment. What I always encourage people to do when you come to these courses, though, is to put together your own personal action plan. You know, this information is only as good as what you do with it. For me, I love doing these. I do this job. And at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, I'm done. But really, your part is just starting. So write down a couple of things. And at the end, we have a little slide that'll just remind you what are the 2 or 3 things you're going to do as a result of attending the course today. So our topic is dissolving debt. What we want to do and what our objectives are, what we want to focus on right here are understanding the cash debt management process. Recognize how to evaluate and manage your spending. Learn how to develop a plan to reduce and eliminate your debt, and then learn to use the resources and tools you have available to you, and just know which steps you may want to take next. So that's what we're going to focus in on. And when we get started with this topic is right here. We all have a life equation. You're trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to take care of today? What am I putting aside for tomorrow? Like how much am I saving? And versus how much I'm spending today. And you want to enjoy yourself as well. So maybe you'll want to have money put aside for other financial goals. Maybe it's taking a nice vacation or doing some things with your family, whatever that might be. It's definitely a balance, but the challenge can be is if you're not making planned and conscious decisions, if you're not really figuring out where do you want your money to go, where do you want it to go? Not just, okay, I'm paying for everything and I'm kind of in a tizzy. Where do you want it to go? That will be in alignment with your goals and your objectives and your values. You can get like this, where it's like, whoa, I'm sort of sliding to one side or the other. I don't want it to be where I'm only saving for the future and I'm not having some time to enjoy this life right now because we really don't know how long we have in this life. We don't know. So you want to have some of that enjoyment and some of that fun now, but we don't want to do it at the expense of not having anything as we get older. And so it's definitely a balance between what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go. And financial planning is honestly all about trade-offs and choices. Really, the question is, are you emphasizing today's enjoyments at the expense of tomorrow's needs? And of course, the challenge there might be that you're not spending money on just enjoyment. Maybe you've had to spend additional money on some true needs. I mean, maybe there were medical issues or other financial things that came up, and it wasn't about you throwing it away on fun things. It's just that life gets in the way and you've ended up spending some additional money in areas where you weren't really necessarily planning on doing at that time. I mean, emergency things can happen. So the biggest challenge is to really look at what's happening with you and try to figure out what would it take for you to achieve balance. And no 2 people are alike. No situation is the same. And I know that we all have different circumstances. And so that's why this is a really personal situation for you to figure out how can you achieve balance. And that's what the focus is. How can you achieve balance? It's looking at how much are you saving, how much are you spending, what's going on today, what are your other goals, and then what are you doing about your future situation as well. So what we're trying to do is achieve this plan that can help you achieve your goals and really put your life in balance financially. So let's talk about what do you need to do, because ultimately what you need to do are create some personal financial statements. That's what you have to do. Every time we talk about setting financial goals, every financial goal starts with, where are you today? Where are you today financially? So that's what you have to do, is sort of get that picture in place of where you are today. And you do that by creating 2 different financial statements. And we do have tools on our website that can help you with these. You can look up our net worth calculator, our cash flow calculator, and articles about cash flow and so on. You can also just talk to our planner line and they can pull these together for you. So however you want to do it, whether you want to put it together yourself, or you want to talk to somebody, or a combination, put it together and then talk to somebody, make sure you've got everything in there. But we really encourage you to do this. So we start with your net worth. So your net worth, this is the document that says, where are you at this moment in time? I think of my net worth as a snapshot. Now, because it's the end of September, a lot of plans and financial assets, they'll do quarterly financial statements. So this is a great time. Like the 30th is on Monday, right? So maybe your goal is, I want to do my net worth on October 1st because I can pull up my statement from September 30th for my UMPIP. I can pull up my other financial statements, and then you start to list out all your assets, the value of your home, the full value, it's the market value of your home. On the other side, we'll look at debts and how much you might owe. So the market value of your home, your car, what's the value of your retirement account? Do you have any outside investments and so on? So we start first with your assets. What do you have? And then the other side is, what do you owe? Well, the net worth is basically saying, if I sold off everything today and I paid off my debts, how much cash would I have left over? So that's my net worth. And you look at your net worth over time too. You're hoping, of course, that your net worth is improving because you'll be paying down on your home, you'll be paying down on your car, and you still have some value left and so on. But you want to capture all your debts. So mortgage, auto loan, credit card debt, any of those debts. And so from there, we have a sample net worth statement. The sample net worth statement starts looking at, here's everything. I'm going to hold on a second because somehow I forgot to tell my watch not to bother me. So excuse me for that. I don't know if you heard those little dings, but I did. So I'll put that on Do Not Disturb. So we look at your sample net worth statement right here. And you can see I've got my 403B, I've got my IRAs. If you have outside IRAs, what do you have in your bank account? Do you have any investment certificates of deposit right there? What's the value of your home, your market value, your car, any other assets? And then subtract out your debts. There's your credit card debt if you have that, car loan, your mortgage, to get your total debts to determine your net worth. Now, here's how your net worth can assist you. It basically can help you in understanding the progress you're making towards your financial goals. This is sort of my checklist that says, okay, well, what is this for? Well, that top line, of course, that's for retirement. Well, maybe one of the things I wanted to do in retirement was buy a boat or an RV or take a big vacation. Well, that's what those certificates of deposit are for. So you then can line item the different things that you have in mind here based on what you have on your list for your net worth statement. And then one of the things you can do here is you can go to our website and use the net worth calculator to create a net worth statement. And you can also call our planner line and they can help you with this. And also remember, if you have any questions as we go through this, please feel free to put those in that Q&A box. I'll double check that to see if we have any questions and I can help you. The other thing is, if you do have questions about any of this material or you need assistance, you can always call our planner line. We do have it set up so you can make an appointment with a planner, and you can actually make an appointment with the same planner each time you call. So you really have your own personal phone-based financial planner that can assist you with any of the financial decisions that you're making. And I will tell you, I have worked personally with a financial planner for about 10 years now, and I do feel like I'm in much better financial shape because I work with a planner, because that planner is helping me focus on my long-term goals. I always tell people I could justify almost any expenditure and tell you why it's really necessary, and I really, really, really need this, even if it might be something that somebody else would consider frivolous. But by having that financial person that I can run things by, if it's a larger purchase, I can really make a better, more objective evaluation of, is that something I feel like I want to put my money in at this time? So I personally find that it helps. And here you have that opportunity. Certainly while you're working for this organization, you can use these resources to assist you in that planning process. The other thing you look at, and this one becomes very important when we're talking about getting out of debt, is your cash flow, also known as a budget. It's your income versus subtracting out your expenses, because this is the ongoing expenditures. So the first one's that snapshot of here's what my overall financial picture looks like. This is, okay, what's happening day to day, month to month, quarter to quarter, year to year. This is looking overall at this. Now, if you've never done budgeting, there's a budget methodology out there that you might want to look up. All you have to do is Google 50, 30, 20. And that may work for you. It's not the perfect one for everybody. If you live in an area that has very high housing costs, 50, 30, 20 is probably not going to work. But all you're really looking to do, if you're looking for a budget methodology, you're just looking to find whichever one works for you. There's probably so many different options. 50, 30, 20 is a popular one. Some people do like what they call zero-based budgeting. Whatever it is that will work, that's what you're trying to do, is figure out what will work for you. So when you do your cash flow, you're saying, I want to know every single dollar that's coming in and everywhere those dollars are going. And you break it into two big categories: necessary, discretionary, need to have, nice to have. And this is where it can really help you when it comes time to look at paying down your debt, is understanding these categories. So here is my sample cash flow statement. I'm saying, here's my annual pay, got some interest and dividends coming in. So I've got a total income at the top there. Now I'm going to start to subtract out those other things. So I've got necessary expenses. There's my housing, utilities, my insurance, my car note, my car insurance, my clothing, I need clothing, my groceries. I have to tell you though, it's your choice on how you do this. When I look at my grocery budget, a part of it is necessary, but I love to cook. So truly a part of my budget is discretionary, where I'm going to buy ingredients other people might not buy, some other I might buy some things that are a little bit more expensive. To me, I think of those as discretionary. And so I look at my budget, like I don't always keep as tight as I could to my grocery budget, just because that's something I enjoy doing. So a part of it is my budget, a part of it is a hobby. So you can determine how you want to break that out. I also have cable and internet. The internet to me is necessary. The cable right now, that's discretionary. As a matter of fact, my husband and I are finally evaluating, should we cut the cord this year? Because they keep charging more and more for watching live television. And you can't just pick, the 12 channels you watch and pay per channel. You're paying for these huge packages and not watching a lot of those channels. So we're definitely going to consider cutting the cable cord by the end of this year. But I think of that part of my budget as discretionary. And then definitely isolate debt repayments so that you understand what you're paying as far as debt repayments. I've got my taxes showing there, and I have my tax deferred savings because I want to make sure that number stays good. So overall, I'm saying I've got about 68,500. And so I've got cash flow of another 3,000 over this year that's available for other financial goals. So one of the key steps here is just really getting a good understanding of what this picture looks like. You can visit our website. You can use the Live by a Budget goal to analyze your spending. You can also tie your financial resources to our website. It will categorize them for you, and you can work with one of our planners that can assist you with it. But this is definitely one of your biggest resources right here in helping you with debt management. Now, in this case, I looked over the whole picture to say, what do I have that I have left over for these goals? And that's what I'm trying to figure out, is all of this information. And let me just give you a couple of statistics too. When they talk about your consumer debt ratio, this is the ratio of your monthly consumer debt payments to your monthly after-tax income. It should not exceed 20%. So these are just some benchmarks for your overall financial picture. Your housing cost ratio, of course, a lot of it's going to depend on where you live. If you live in a very high cost area, this statistic isn't going to hold true for you. But for a lot of areas, this one is reasonable. And they're saying it shouldn't exceed 28% of your overall gross income. And then your total debt should be no more than 36% of your gross income. Now, those are just sort of rules of thumb. Again, it might necessarily not work for you. So now let's focus in on our cash and debt management process. And that is basically seeing if you feel like, man, I'm just in a situation where I feel like I've got a little bit too much debt. Here's what you can do as far as your different steps. The first thing you want to do is evaluate your current spending. So that's what we just did when we did our cash flow. You start with evaluating your current spending. You want to know who is spending, how much are they spending, how are you spending, where are you spending? Basically, where is the money going? And does the spending reflect your values? So, you have different people making financial decisions in your household. If you're married or have a significant other, you have more than one person who might be doing this. The key thing when we're talking about this whole process is you want to make sure that we're all on the same page when it comes to spending. And I've been in debt. I got in debt one time. It was my husband and I. We got in debt. We managed to get out of it the first time. Unfortunately, one of the things we didn't tackle is we didn't tackle how we got into debt to begin with. And then we repeated that process. And that does happen for people. So it happened again for us. And at that point, I'm like, okay, we have to figure out two things. One, how do we get out of this? And two, how did we get into it so we can stop that from happening? We had to tackle the root cause. Now, there were the main root cause that we had personally is that we didn't have an emergency fund. So we got out of debt. And there's some sort of psychology around being in debt that, like, once you have some debt, it's easier to get in more debt. That's how it was for me. It was like, well, I already owe money. So what does it matter if I owe more? Right. And for some people, you might have that same psychology with you. For me, it was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense at all. So the second time we built up our emergency fund, and as things came up where we might have spent the money, we really approached it more as that partnership where we sat down to determine, does it make sense for us to put our money like this? And so now our goal, even though I choose to use credit cards because they have rewards and whatnot, I choose to use credit cards, but I have to pay them off each month. So that's one of our sort of foundational goals in our household. And so a big decision, if I'm going to pay for something, is do I have the money that I can pay it off? Like if I don't have the money in my bank account that I can afford to pay this in cash today, then I also can't afford to necessarily put it on a credit card. And if it goes above that, that's when we have to have a conversation to determine, does that fit into our spending plan? So overall, you have to evaluate your current spending. And then you're going to then deal with shortfalls in debt, create a spending plan, and review your process. And we're going to go back over and look at these other steps as well. So that's what we're trying to do. So what are the ways to manage your spending? Well, first of all, you got to prepare that realistic budget and then stick to it. Regularly review your budget. And that's one of the things I do now. I regularly review. Now, I have to tell you, I do fall down on the job sometimes. My goal is to look at my expenses every single month. And I have to tell you that right now I'm really operating at about 2.5 months. Like every 2.5 months, I then go back. The problem with looking at it every 2.5 months is that I have to play like detective to figure out what the expense was for sometimes. I'm looking at my calendar. I'm going back to look at my receipts. Like, what was that? So I make it a little bit harder on myself by not doing it monthly. At least if I did it monthly, I would remember things. But I keep trying to set to that goal. I'm going to work on that. I've got that on my list of things to do. But I do regularly review my budget. So it's not every month, but I do review it. And I really comparison shop. So I would encourage you to comparison shop. The good news today is it's so much easier to comparison shop. Avoid impulsive spending opportunities. I actually have some rules in place for areas where I tend to spend money because it's not that much money, but it starts to add up. Like I'm in a couple of book clubs. Well, if I buy 2 books every single month, it's like over $300 at the end of the year. So what I do when I find out the book, the first thing I do is I go to an app called Libby. If you're a reader, hopefully you have the Libby app, Libby. It's tied to my library card for my local library, and I can download a digital book or even an audio book. Now, sometimes I have to wait, but they come surprisingly fast. So here I am, and I'm saving that money each month, even though it doesn't seem like a lot of money. It starts to add up at the end of the year. So I have rules in place to avoid those areas where I'm really impulsive. And whatever it is you need to do that will control your spending, you should do it. For years, until I really felt like I was comfortable with it, I wouldn't use credit cards, and I would only use cash or checks rather than using credit cards. But today I do feel comfortable. And so I use a credit card. I use one or two credit cards for just about everything. And then I pay them off at the end of the month. But you need to figure out what will work for you. And then as far as ATMs, the challenge with ATMs, you get the money out of there and then you have no clue where it went. I actually track that as well as much as I can. I don't track every tiny expense, but if it's a larger amount that I pay out in cash, I keep track of that. And I actually go back to my ATM withdrawal and I put down the categories I spent that money on. So do what you can to start tracking. And then the next step is finding ways to save. So where could you cut back? So if you dine in instead of eating out, that's an average annual savings for some people. For us, it would be $250. I have a family member where if they would dine in more and stop eating out, they could probably save $1,000 over the year. So you just look at ways you can personally have some savings. Increase your auto home insurance. So these are all just different ideas. Streaming a movie versus going to the movie theater. Make your own coffee rather than buying designer coffee. I did that years ago. I figured out, well, what do I like? Because I did like Starbucks and designer coffee. Not really designer coffee because I'm really just a coffee person. I don't have all those frappuccinos and whippuccinos and whatever they call them today. Occasionally I would have a latte, but I don't really do that. So what I did instead is I found a coffee machine I liked. It was a little on the expensive side, and we bought that coffee machine. And now every day I have a great cup of coffee, just that one, and I'm pretty happy with it. I rarely go by one of those places and buy coffee. So you have to figure out what are the things you're spending money on, where can you free up some additional money. And this is just showing you, if I were to free that money up and then instead of spending it, put it in my 403b or in my IRA, after 30 years, if you have 7% growth in that account, you're really saving a lot of money towards your future. So definitely think about that, and consider some way of tracking. And it doesn't have to be high tech. It can be very low tech. You can write things down in a notebook, in a spreadsheet. You can use an app, whatever it is you want to do. The key is to figure out where is your money going. And years ago, I read a really interesting article about people who were wealthy. And they added one more thing that I liked. They said, don't just track your expenditures, evaluate them. The question is not, how much do I spend at the grocery store? The question is, do I want to spend that much at the grocery store? Which that's kind of hard today because groceries are expensive. But I know I can save more money if I need to, if I want to. And so I start to look at it a little bit more to say, do I really want to spend that in that area? It's kind of like buying books. I don't want to spend $30 a month buying books. I mean, I read the book. I rarely read them twice. Sometimes I don't even like the book they chose for book club. So I'm more about figuring out, is it at my local library? Can I download it? Can I use the audio book? I'm rather about getting it for free so I can enjoy it, have that interaction with my friends in my book clubs and have a great time. But at the same time, I'm saving that money I can use for other things I really want to do. So evaluate your current expenditures, start to track your expenses, and figure out if you can free up any additional money. And then deal with any shortfalls and debts. What type of debt? How much debt? How much is that debt costing you? And what is your ability to manage it? And this is the one where this is where it gets hard. It's like, we just got past the easy stuff. You might have thought that part was hard. Nope. This is the part that's hard because you have to basically really come clean about exactly how much debt you have. You really do. You have to figure out, what does it fit, do a whole chart or graph or whatever it is that you want to do. Again, it doesn't have to be high tech, but you've got to figure out exactly how much do I owe and what am I spending on that debt, and the consequences of debt. There's not just fees, interest charges, negative credit consequences potentially, or you're stressed out because you're living paycheck to paycheck. But ultimately, I mean, for me, the biggest one, along with the financial consequences, was the overall stress to my mental health. It was very stressful. And one of the number one things that impacts a couple's relationship can be money, stress over that money. and maybe differences in how we were brought up or whatnot, and what you might want to spend money on. So it really is a good idea to have that conversation and figure it all out. And then look at what the debt's costing you. So you buy this ultra HD TV, this 4K Ultra HD TV, and it's $1,500, and you're paying $60 a month on that. $60 a month. If that credit card rate is 18%, which, sad to say, that's not an unreasonable credit card interest rate these days, and it takes you now 32 months to pay that off. You paid $1,920. Basically, you paid all that extra money that you could have used for some other financial goal. So that's the thing we're trying to get people to understand. I was actually talking to a family member who's kind of new to the credit world, and he was saying, but I'm making all my payments. I'm like, well, yeah, you are making all your payments, but you also have to look at what you're paying ultimately for something. And wouldn't it be better if you would just buy that thing outright and not put it on credit? I'll tell you one thing I do a lot today. I didn't used to do this, but I do it a lot if I decide I need a purchase. So I wanted to get a exercise thing for my husband. He's dealing with mobility, and so we got this thing. It's called a QB, and I call it his chair bike. It's basically it's a little stair step kind of thing, and you sit down and you can pedal while you're sitting and kind of help you with your mobility. Well, the first thing I start looking for, even if I go on something like Amazon, I start looking for one that's used or refurbished. I start looking for refurbished. So for this, because it was more important that it be stable and all that good stuff, I decided I really wanted one that was refurbished. But I saved like 25 or 30% because I purchased the refurbished one instead of the brand new one. And you know what? We can't tell the difference. It works fine. It's doing exactly what we wanted. So I look for things on whether it's Facebook Marketplace or eBay. I look for used items, refurbished items, and things that I will be able to use without having to pay all that extra money. So you also need to figure out what type of debt, and is there anything you can do to convert it or lower it if it's non-deductible. So tax deductible might be student loans, mortgage, and investments, and that's only if you're able to itemize your taxes. A lot of people today aren't able to itemize. So if you're not able to itemize, you want to save as much as you can. But if you're talking about consumer debt, you want to try and lower that to a lower rate, or consolidate to a lower payment. So some of the ways you can do that would be consolidating your debt, using savings if you have them to pay off your debt. Try to pay off your highest interest rate first. Make sure you're borrowing wisely if you're going to borrow. Also, make sure you're managing your credit score so you want to pay things on time. And definitely consider, if you don't have it already, make sure you have that emergency fund. Because for me, that was one of my key factors in helping me get out of debt and stay out of debt. So for debt consolidation, the key thing with credit cards in particular is I want to list out the balance, my interest rate, my minimum monthly payment, and how long it would take me to pay those off. And so I'm looking overall at the carrying costs for these different things. And then I'm looking at total for my credit cards. Now, if you're able to, you can look at a home equity line of credit, but that also puts your home at risk. So you want to be careful with doing something like that. Now, we've got a 6% interest rate. I think that interest rate's not as reasonable. Today, it'd be pretty hard to get a 6% interest rate. This is an older slide. With the current interest rates, I think it would be much higher. One other thing you can look at, an alternative, is to just look at getting a personal unsecured loan. A lot of organizations do have those, and the rates are going to be higher on those, but there are organizations where you can get an unsecured loan and pay a lower interest rate and be able to pay down the debt faster. You can also, we have a calculator here you can use. It's the personal debt consolidation calculator. So I just encourage you to look at these different options and figure out what you want to do. After the minimums that you're paying the minimums, what might you want to do next? So if you're talking about having some additional funds that you're able to free up as you do your financial planning, what do you want to do? In this case, I might want to pay down that highest interest rate first. Now, there are a few different ways to do this. One is pay down the highest interest rate, and that way you'll pay the least amount out of pocket. But sometimes it feels better to maybe pay off the lowest balance because then you get that feeling of achievement when you now have two credit card debts instead of three. So figure out what will work for you and then start to focus in on that one. But we just show you, here's what we want to do. We start to pay out additional money on that. And then the key there too is once you pay off that first one, you'll keep that higher payment amount going towards your additional debts until you get everything paid off. Always keep an eye on your credit score as well. You know, your credit score ranges from 300 to 850. The higher your credit score, the lower the risk you are to creditors. So if you're talking about a long-term purchase like a home or an auto, you're going to get a much better interest rate. And they give you the biggest points for payment history and the amount you owe. Those together, that's 65% right there. You can see there's other factors that are going to help you understand your overall credit situation, and do what you can to get your score for free. If you wanted to get your score ordinarily, you would have to pay for it. There are two websites where you can get it for free. If you sign up at Credit Karma, it's Karma, or Credit Sesame. Both of those will give you your credit score for free. And these days, a lot of banks and credit cards will give you your credit score for free as well. So find some way to make sure you know your credit score for free. You should also review your credit reports on a regular basis, obtain and review them, dispute any errors, make sure you make your payments on time, and manage the available credit that you have. You know, the other thing to do is to note, or just to know, is that when they look at your available credit, they look at it two ways. They look at your available credit per card. So if I'm using 90% of the available credit on one card, and if I have other cards where I'm using zero of the credit, I would actually be better off if I had the credit spread across more than one card and I'm using a lower percentage. That will give me a better score than if I'm using the maximum on one card only. So they look at your percentage as a total, what's your available credit versus how much you're using, and then they look at your percentage by credit card. So managing those will help you. Also, utilizing different types of credit will help you. So I know my son, initially, he had fairly low credit, and then he financed a car when he did. And of course, he paid that on time and all that good stuff. It actually improved his credit score when he did that. Having different types of credit. So one action step here is to review annualcreditreport.com. You can receive free credit reports and then identify a source for you to be able to get your credit card score or your credit score for free, whether it's through a credit card or through a bank. If you do have student debt loan, that's something you want to minimize or manage, not minimize, but you want to manage it, deduct the interest if you can, and then create a plan to pay that off. You can also visit studentloan.gov for information and calculators about your repayment choices. Definitely a powerful tool to help you manage debt is going to be to have an emergency fund. It should be 3 to 6 months of your necessary expenses, somewhere it's easy to access, has to be liquid and stable. You don't want to lose any of your principal, and that will help prevent borrowing in case of emergency. I personally keep my emergency fund in an online bank. They pay way more interest. Like my brick and mortar bank pays like 0.01% interest. My online bank right now is paying 4% interest, or it might be a little bit higher. It kind of fluctuates. It certainly can go up and down. So they don't always pay you 4%, but they've made it up to a little bit over 4%. If interest rates go down, then their interest rate will go down, but they pay way more than your brick and mortar banks. So that's something that you might want to consider. And it usually takes a day or a maximum of 3 days to transfer your money from your online bank to your brick and mortar bank, where you could then walk in and pull the money out. And then after you deal with any debts, any shortfalls in debts, overall, what you want to do is you want to create a spending plan. Basically, you want to figure out, where do I want my money to go? Minimize your taxes, use shrewd spending. I'm going to tell you what that means in just a moment. think about increasing your savings and use any debt wisely. So minimize your taxes, whether it's putting more money in the pre-tax side of your UMPIP, utilizing your healthcare accounts, whether it's the flexible spending account, your health reimbursement account, or health savings account, whichever ones you actually have access to under the plans you're on, and also understanding how that parsonage or housing designation can work for you. You can have tax-free withdrawals up to certain limits as well from your UMPIP and some of these other things. So make sure you understand what you have and that you're using those wisely. And you can always call our planner line to help you understand these different programs and the tax implications. As far as Shrewd, we look at Shrewd as a nice little acronym, and we start with shift. Really, you think of your income as one pot. It can only go one place or another. So if I'm going to put it into my grocery pot, I've got to take it out of something else. The other might be halt. The bottom line is just say, wait a minute, am I going to use this money or not? Do I want to spend this or not? Sometimes the answer is no. Restructuring is really figuring out how you want to pay for different items. Exchange would be from food to clothing to anything else. You can potentially exchange. If I take prescription medications, can I move to generic? If I'm purchasing things at the grocery store, maybe I can use the house brand. One of the things I do, I've downloaded the apps for the different stores I shop at, and I try to maximize my dollars. I'll be at one store and I'll be looking at the app to see, well, what does this cost at the other store? Because I know I'm going to make a trip to that one later this week. I might as well wait and pick up that item when I can get it at the best price. We're preparing for a neighborhood party. I was at Walmart the other day and they're having a great big fruit salad. They had what is it? Pineapples were only $1.98 at Walmart. And I know the local store I normally shop at, they were way more than $1.98. So I sent a snapshot to the lady who's the coordinator and says, hey, this might be a good place where you could pick up the pineapples for your fruit salad. And it's a Hawaii themed party. So there will be pineapple involved. So exchange, figure out where you're going to do that. In some cases, it's wait. My girlfriend is the queen of this. She'll look at something online, and what she'll do if she's not sure she really wants or needs it, she just puts it in her shopping basket and closes the app, closes the screen, like, oh, you know what? I'll come back and think about it later. And then decrease. This one takes time, but it's really just decreasing overall what you're spending. You know, up back in exchange, that's me buying used items at times to say, well, I'm just going to put that on my list. I have a couple things on my list right now that I'm going to look for, and I'll be looking for them at a garage sale or at a estate sale, whatever it might be. My daughter-in-law is looking for a specific can opener. So I've got can opener. Actually, matter of fact, I forgot to actually write down the list. I'm going to use this opportunity to write down can opener. And I didn't know I needed one, so I don't have one, but they actually make a wireless cordless. They make a cordless iron, like basically a rechargeable iron. And I do some sewing projects, and I saw that and I was like, ooh, I would like that. So I now have that on my list. I'm going to look for that. I mean, if I can find one at a really great price, I might be interested in picking it up, but it's certainly not something I need today. So I put that under the exchange category, and clearly it's in the wait category. Don't really need it today. My daughter-in-law's opener works. She'd like to get one that works better. So I'll start looking for that one secondhand. Why pay top dollar when my son is probably going to break it when he goes to use it anyway? So just saying. All right. Well, also make sure you're saving money when you can. You can save before tax or after tax in your 401k. You know, I just realized I got so busy getting chatty today. I've got a few more slides to get through, so I'm going to go through these quickly. But make sure you're saving what you can into your 403b plan and your UMPIP. And then keep in mind that if you do it on a before tax basis, it will decrease your current taxes. It'll also decrease what you'll pay as far as SECA taxes or FICA taxes. If you pay on an after-tax basis into the Roth, then in the future, you'll get those contributions back to you tax-free. And you can call our EY Navigate Planner line to discuss which types